Whether young, old, middle-aged, well, or sick, if you have to go see your family practitioner and you don't understand how the financial incentives work between the doctor and the HMO that you're a part of, you're at risk.
Physicians who have spoken out in our community are now blackballed. If I am blackballed, as these other physicians have been, so be it. Medicine isn't worth much anymore if this continues to go the way it is.
I'm Mike Wallace.
I'm Morley Safer.
I'm Ed Bradley.
I'm Steve Proft.
I'm Leslie Stahl. Those stories and Andy Rooney tonight on 60 Minutes.
Up with an HMO, a health maintenance organization, which lets you choose your doctor from a list it provides. It pays the doctor a monthly fee. In return, he decides what medicine you take, which, if any, specialist you can see, and how long you can stay in the hospital. For years, doctors stood accused of driving up the cost of health care through excessive tests, specialists, and hospital time. Then along came HMOs, which promised to deliver good medicine, cheaper, and show a profit. Well, one promise has been kept. It is profitable. But is it cheaper, and is it good medicine? We went to California, where HMOs dominate the marketplace, and found a lot of doctors troubled by the system.
We're getting pushed. We're getting pushed closer and closer to that margin, where we have to think consciously about cost rather than quality each time we're making a decision about taking care of a patient.
Dr. Rex Green is an oncologist. Dr. Robert Plancy is an internist, in managed care language, a gatekeeper. He must approve all tests and referrals. Dr. Vincent Fortunace is a neurologist. All three doctors practice in Southern California. All have patients with traditional insurance, but say they must take HMO patients or stop practicing. They say the power of HMOs is so great, they could be put out of business if they spoke openly. Still, they did.
Managed care organizations maintain a profile on physicians in terms of how much money they're spending per capita. So this is very often broken down into, well, here's how many average days your patients spend in the hospital compared to somebody else. And if somebody has a particularly ill patient who is hospitalized for a month as a result of a catastrophic illness, that may throw off their statistics.
You are judged purely and simply on your averages.
There's certainly that pressure, and there are fines which can be levied if they second guess, look back in retrospect and say, gee, this patient could have left the hospital a day earlier, and therefore, doctor, we're fining you so many dollars for an unnecessary bed day. Really
Dr. Plancy says one HMO fined a colleague for overutilization, $500 for each hospital day the HMO later decided was, quote, unnecessary. As an incentive for doctors, most HMOs have a bonus system. The fewer hospital days doctors order, the more money left to be divvied up among them at the end of the year.
It's all about controlling the behavior of doctors. Physicians spend $800 billion a year now. Out of the $1 trillion that's spent on health care, our pens will disperse $800 billion. So somebody wants to manage that behavior and take some of that money and put it in their pockets. And the big insurance companies want their first cut off the top, and they really don't much care what happens to the money that trickles through their hands.
Whether you're young, old, middle-aged, well, or sick, if you have to go see your family practitioner and you don't understand how the financial incentives work between the doctor and the HMO that you're a part of, you're at risk.
Mark Hiepler is a malpractice attorney in Oxnard, California. A family tragedy, the death of his sister who'd been denied treatment by an HMO, has turned him into the nemesis of the managed care industry. He's filed what could become a landmark case on behalf of Joyce Ching and the family she left behind. The lawsuit against the doctor and his group practice claims the colon cancer that killed Mrs. Ching might have been treatable had she been referred to a specialist immediately. The Ching's HMO was Metropolitan Life, which in turn had a contract with Dr. Elvin Gaines. Hiepler claims that the HMO contract created an incentive for Dr. Gaines to put his income ahead of Joyce Ching's health.
They believe that the doctor would look after their best interests and do anything necessary to get her better. And The doctor's note reveals that she told him about rectal bleeding, one of the top 10 signs of cancer, until you prove it's not. The doctor palpated a mass, and nothing was done to rule that out.
What the family didn't know was that Dr. Gaines' group was being paid a flat fee by MetLife, a capitation fee it's called, which means literally so much per head, so much per patient. That fee was $27.91 a month. Obviously not enough to treat any serious illness. But the theory behind capitation is numbers. Doctors sign up thousands of patients on the assumption, generally accurate, that most people don't get sick. The money made on healthy patients will pay for treating the sick ones. But in practice, doctors tell us the sick ones may well be denied proper care because the cost of tests and specialists come out of potential profits. For the Ching family, it all came to a head one weekend. She was desperately ill. He tried to reach Dr. Gaines. He couldn't. On Monday, they both went to his office.
He said he didn't appreciate the amount of calls we made over the weekend. And he said, I don't think that I should continue being your doctor. And I said, well, then if that's the case, and I'm not leaving until we see a specialist today.
Dr. Gaines finally agreed, and that afternoon, Joyce Ching saw a specialist. He immediately tested her for cancer.
He had a biopsy done. He, at that time, said, you're in no shape to go anywhere. And I'm checking you in. I'm admitting you into the hospital today.
It was that dramatic.
It was that dramatic.
And when was cancer diagnosed?
The very next morning.
She had 7 surgeries, hundreds of thousands of dollars of chemotherapy that was ineffective, and died a tragic death hooked up on IVs, laying at home, when all that could have been prevented. And it could have been cheaper.
But couldn't it be a tragic but routine case of malpractice?
It could be, but when you look at the conduct of the doctor and you look at the contract, it's more than medical malpractice.
Dr. Gaines denies any wrongdoing, but refused to discuss the Ching case. MetLife, although not part of the lawsuit, refused to discuss the Ching case specifically or contracts in general, and so did the California Association of HMOs. But we did get to hear from them, through their lobbyist, Maureen O'Haran.
This hearing is now called to order.
At a hearing last summer called by the California legislature as a result of the Ching case, Ms. O'Haran defended the flat fee arrangement and said it saves money through preventive medicine.
Under capitation, the physicians have a whole new perspective on patient care. They're no longer paid for episodes of illness. They're paid to keep their population of patients well.
For example, HMOs encourage and pay for annual checkups. Nevertheless, most of the testimony was like this.
We no longer talk about quality care, we talk about minimally safe care.
Kit Costello spoke for the California Nurses Association.
HMO after HMO has restructured the way in which care is provided to patients in order to cut costs. This involves shortening hospital stays, treating patients on the outside, and shifting more care onto their families. We have reports of patients in this state who have been forced to call 911 from their hospital beds in order to obtain care.
Doctors like Larry Midas say that HMOs now have the power of life and death over doctors.
Physicians who have spoken out in our community are now blackballed. If I am blackballed as these other physicians have been, so be it. Medicine isn't worth much anymore if this continues to go the way it is.
Critics of HMOs say that while hospital services and general patient care are being cut to the bone, for-profit HMOs have become the darlings of Wall Street, posting huge profits. And HMO executives are collecting as much as $15 million a year in salaries and stock options. Although the California Association of HMOs refused repeated interview requests, they recommended that we speak to Dr. Keith Richmond. He runs a large doctor group that has contracts with most of the HMOs operating in California.
Stay well. I can tell you that the physicians are trying to do a good job. They're trying to provide good medical care. And I'm also aware of the perception of people, that's the perception that you're talking about, where every decision is a financial decision. And I just don't think that's the case.
These are doctors' perceptions, not reporters' perceptions, not patients' perceptions.
I can't speculate on what other physicians are saying, Mr. Safer. What I'm saying is in my own practice and in my own group, we are trying to provide good medical care.
In your group, you don't penalize doctors for overutilization. Never a word is mentioned.
No, we don't talk about that to the group. We look at the utilization. We know what each physician's practice pattern is. We know how much they refer to different specialties. But no, we wouldn't deselect a physician simply for overutilization.
Do you have a word with them?
Do we have a word with them? We do have a word with them. I mean, if we think that somebody is simply referring patients for and not taking care of them for things that we think a primary care physician should be easily able to handle, then we will have a word with them.
Most patients do not know what they're getting. What they hear is the commercial on the TV, they hear the commercial on the radio, but in fact, what the commercial says and what they're going to get may be very, very different.
I've gone through the Depression, and there is an old saying that there's no such a thing as a free lunch. But Secure Horizons truthfully is as close as you'll ever get in your life.
Secure Horizons covers for you anything that's medically necessary and also for you a variety of other items that are preventive.
At this recruitment session last June, these senior citizens were given a free lunch just to listen to the HMO sales pitch. Whatever the problems of managed care, federal and state governments trying desperately to control medical costs are urging Medicare and Medicaid patients to join HMOs. And the HMOs are out pitching for patients.
You end up staying healthier, still getting medical care when you need it and when it's appropriate for you, but also avoiding illnesses that you have done something ahead of time to treat and take care of. Does that make sense? It's a philosophy shift. It really is.
Well, HMOs are being marketed to elderly people. What are you going to prevent? You're not going to prevent a cancer that started 20 years ago in a patient that I need to see now. It's simply a rationing system for delivering care to the elderly at a fixed price.
Gee, if we had managed care of airliners, how many of us would want to fly? If the pilot and the mechanic decide they want something done, will a administrator or a bean counter be on the other end of the phone thousands of miles away second-guessing them and saying, well, do you really need to take that engine down, or do you think you can fly it a few more times?
If you look at the studies that have been done in this country from reputable institutions like the RAND Corporation, you'll get estimates that there are upwards of 30% of procedures and referrals that are unnecessary. There are problems with too many procedures, too many tests, too many referrals being done under fee-for-service system.
You're saying less medicine is better medicine, is what you're saying.
Well, I don't think I'm saying that less is better at all. I'm saying what's appropriate and what is medically indicated is the best way to do it.
Dr. Green would agree. The problem is how the decisions are made.
A physician has always had the ability to sell you a poultice or some other kind of nostrum that you never needed. And what has defined it as a profession is that ethical obligation to serve the patient's best interest. That obligation is being attacked in a whole new way at the end of the 20th century, and we are adapting to that as best we can. But we are being industrialized. We are being mass-produced. We are being commoditized, and our patients are being commoditized. So it's a severe test.
It sounds to me that as if it's more than just a severe test. I mean, it's a major attack and the walls are crumbling.
It's a severe strain, and I think you're going to see a lot of good community physicians being forced out of business simply because they refuse to bend to the demands of the managed care organizations, and they continue to practice what they feel is medicine in the best interest of their patients.
It should be noted President Clinton and congressional Republicans do agree on at least one thing. They see HMOs as a way of saving federal dollars and want to encourage Medicare and Medicaid patients to join up. Also, the Ching case. Opening arguments are expected to be heard this Tuesday.